Will the US dollar's position as the dominant global currency be overturned? I'm probably going bankrupt because I still hold about 40% of my assets in US dollars. If the US dollar becomes worthless, dollar-denominated assets like US stocks will collapse. Why is that? Hello from FortuneCraft, ladies and gentlemen. You may have noticed that many people are saying Russia and China are leading the development of a new international payment system, replace SWIFT. Alongside that, the yuan is supposed to replace the US dollar. Listen to this. I can't help laughing. It's actually quite simple. Back in the day, for example, I'm a Japanese guy who wants to buy a German car. I say hi to you. You're a German guy. I check the car. It's fine. Then I hand you a suitcase full of money and order 100 cars to be shipped to Japan. You're happy to take the money, and we shake hands. But as soon as I head to the door, you stop me. Why? Because the money I'm paying you is Japanese yen. In other words, I'm trying to buy a Porsche in Germany with yen, a currency printed by Japan that's mainly useful for buying goods in Japan. Now, I'm the one who wants your Porsche, but you, as the German seller, don't necessarily want Japanese GTRs. Plus, if I pay you in yen, you'll have to convert it into US dollars, or another currency, and that's affected by exchange rates. The Japanese yen has lost nearly half its value, making this conversion less favorable for you. So, how can you accept a devalued currency in exchange for your Porsche? In the past, trading between countries was complicated due to the lack of a unified currency. Then, the US stepped in to mediate, creating a system called SWIFT. In this system, if you want to buy goods from any country or sell your own, you just notify the system. It's very convenient. For example, Japan doesn't need to worry about Germany rejecting yen, and Germany doesn't need to worry about Japan paying in yen. All transactions are in US dollars, so everything works smoothly. You can use US dollars to buy goods anywhere in the world. If you don't have dollars, no problem, you can sell your specialty products, and the US will buy them in large quantities, paying you in dollars. Every country ends up with a significant amount of US dollars, enabling global trade. As a Japanese person, aren't you happy that your GTRs can be sold to the US and worldwide, earning you lots of dollars? Then you can use those dollars to buy a Porsche from Germany, if you no longer fancy a Porsche, a Ferrari from Italy. This system helps countries earn dollars and trade with other nations. Transactions processed via SWIFT are faster and safer than before, making them highly efficient. That sounds great, right? It certainly makes global business smoother and more convenient. But if this system is so good, why do many countries now prefer to avoid the US dollar? Instead, they're working to create payment systems to replace SWIFT. Many argue it's because the US has used SWIFT to dominate the world. What does that mean? Let's say you're Japan and want to buy a Porsche from Germany. I'm Germany, and I want to buy a plane ticket from Japan. Here's what happens. First, Japan sells a GTR to the US for $10,000. At the same time, Germany sells a Porsche to the US for $10,000. Then, Japan uses that $10 to buy a Porsche from Germany, and Germany uses its $10,000 to buy a Japanese GTR. But the problem is, to complete this transaction, Japan has to produce and sell an extra GTR to the US, and Germany has to produce and sell an extra Porsche to the US. If they bartered directly, each side would only need to produce one car. Because transactions require US dollars, both sides must produce an additional car to earn dollars before making the main trade. This extra car is an invisible tax. So, who benefits from this tax? The US. Two nations like ours work hard to produce cars like GTRs and Porsches, while the US simply prints more money, allowing it to buy everything easily. This is why the US stays so wealthy. While we focus on production, they just print more dollars. If I were the US and found your product too expensive, I'd print more dollars to buy your GTR or Porsche. As I print more, the dollar's value drops, causing it to depreciate. This means the $10,000 you earned from selling your GTR or Porsche becomes worth less over time. To keep up, you have to produce more cars to exchange for more dollars. In simple terms, if I want your product, I print money. If I think it's too pricey, I print more. Meanwhile, you're struggling to produce goods for dollars that keep losing value. Eventually, you can't take it anymore. You decide you've had enough of being exploited and stop using dollars for trade. For instance, Japan once tried to promote the Asian Currency Unit (ACU) or Asian Yen, but then came the Plaza Accord, and Japan suffered major setbacks, losing 3 decades of development. Talk of an Asian Yen solution faded away. You can find more details in my previous videos. Europe introduced the euro, but soon faced challenges with the Kosovo War, which diverted capital meant for European investment. The euro devalued by 30% shortly after its launch, followed by the Greek bankruptcy crisis. You can look up its history online. Oil sellers emerged, refusing to accept dollars, signaling economic shifts that led to the Iraq War. Others rejected dollars and euros, insisting on gold instead, resulting in the Libya War. Now Russia and China are boldly planning a payment system to replace the dollar in SWIFT. As the saying goes, one forest cannot have 2 tigers. This will surely lead to big problems. For the first time in my life, I feel war is creeping very close. If that happens, assets like real estate, stocks, and others will become worthless. So, what can we do? In the next 1 to 2 years, many in the middle class will become poor. But those with a bit more knowledge will prepare and potentially reap huge profits in this asset restructuring cycle. If you find this relevant and want to prepare, subscribe to my channel and turn on notifications. If you're worried about forgetting to act after watching, click this video to save it to your playlist for easy follow-up. Now, let's address whether Russia and China really aim to build a payment system and if the dollar will truly become worthless. I laugh and tell you the dollar won't collapse in the short term. If it does, I think China might even step in to help save it. Why? Consider this. China is known as the workshop of the world, producing goods and selling them globally. As a result, China has accumulated vast amounts of dollars and grown into the world's second largest economy. If those dollars and US bonds held by China became worthless, both China and the US would suffer massive losses. When 2 tigers fight, the hunter benefits. If they weaken each other too much, smaller players gain the advantage. It's easy to understand, right? How did the United States become a world power? When others fought, the US stayed out of the fray. It sold weapons and waited. After 2 world wars, it amassed 75% of the world's gold, transforming from a poor nation into the richest in the world. This story from the last century or 2 reflects Sun Tzu's strategy: subdue enemies without direct conflict. While the strongest nations rushed into war, America stood aside, seemingly cowardly, then emerged as a global hegemon after World War II. Now many media outlets claim the US is weakening due to Russia and China's cooperation. Personally, I don't buy it. Russia was forced to develop a new payment system because it had no choice. After the Ukraine war, the US froze Russia's assets and kicked it out of SWIFT. Now Russia wants to sell goods, but others dare not use dollars to buy them. When Russia wants to buy goods, countries refuse its currency, demanding dollars instead. Why? Because the US as the group leader monitors everything. Dollars are issued by the US. They know exactly how much is out there. Trade a few $100, and maybe no one notices. Trade a few $100 billion, and the US will know. If you dare trade with Russia, you'll face sanctions, frozen assets, and swift exclusion. Even China avoids using dollars to trade with Russia. Nowadays, many say US inflation is severe and interest rates are high, despite recent cuts. But Russia's inflation is far worse. Prices have risen by 30%. Before 100 rubles bought a kilo of meat. Now it's 100 rubles. Borrow 100 rubles from a bank, and you'll repay 120 rubles because interest rates have jumped to 20%. That means borrowing to buy a kilo of meat costs you 20% in interest plus 30% in price hikes. A total loss of 50 rubles on a 100 ruble purchase. Since few trade with Russia, its people can only buy domestically. Without imports, demand surges, supply dwindles, and prices soar. Sellers raise prices, and if no one uses the ruble internationally, it loses value, fueling inflation. Raising interest rates might encourage saving over spending, but it doesn't fix the root issue. Even with money, no one wants to sell you goods. It's like being rich on a deserted island. Russia still wants to trade globally and play by the rules. So, when Russia approaches India and says, "I want your food, but we can't use dollars," they propose, "How about this? You pay me in rupees for my goods, and I'll pay you in rupees for yours. We both win, and the US doesn't watch us." India bought a ton of Russian oil, paying in rupees, but when Russia tried to buy Indian goods, India said, "We only accept dollars for international deals, not our own currency." So, Russia traded oil for rupees it couldn't use, like selling your house and getting paid in monopoly money, only to find it's worthless when you tried to buy something back. Check the news for the rest of the story. I think it's more important to focus on the bigger picture than the small details. Russia is building a new payment system to avoid dollars in trade. Some say it'll replace the dollar. I think Bitcoin has a better shot. Is that possible? It's uncertain, but Bitcoin already exists as an asset. Why has China teamed up with Russia on this? That's the key question. I'm not sure if it's wise to dig deeper here, so let's leave it at that. In simple terms, Russia's exchange rate fluctuations have cost China a lot. What does that mean? Does it show their relationship is strong? Have you ever traveled abroad and exchanged your local currency, like yuan, Hong Kong dollars, or Singapore dollars, into another? You can profit from exchange rate differences. Russia currently has two rates, the official rate and the black market rate. The official rate is what banks offer, but with high inflation and a devaluing currency, it's artificially rigid. Why? Because few exchange rubles officially. Most use the black market, where rates reflect the currency's true value. China is one of the few recognizing Russia's official rate, letting traders exploit the gap. For example, Russian and Chinese traders swap yuan for dollars, take those dollars to Russia's black market to buy rubles, then return to China and convert back to yuan officially, pocketing the difference. Say you trade 5 yuan for $1. Use that dollar on Russia's black market for 20 rubles, then convert those rubles back to 10 yuan officially in China. From 5 yuan you've made 10, doubling your money. Repeat this, and it scales to $2,200, or even 200 million yuan. This arbitrage is nearly risk-free. Few countries honor Russia's official rate, but China does. So, will everyone profit from this? Some are rushing in thinking they can cash out, but they should stop. This opportunity has passed. China has tightened controls. on such for X transactions. If you made money before, great, you can't keep playing now. By joining Russia's SPFS payment system, China is helping Russia solve its trade woes, not aiming to replace the dollar or SWIFT. What's the current reality? Without dollars, your country can barely buy or sell globally. Many now hype the U.S. trade deficit as a boon. A trade deficit means the U.S. buys more from the world than it sells. It spends more than it earns. Why? Because the world needs dollars to trade. To supply them, the U.S. prints money and buys global goods, feeding the system. According to this theory, the U.S. stays great by sustaining the world. But here's the catch. If that's true, why did Trump, when elected, push to bring jobs back to the U.S.? He taxed firms like TSMC and imposed global tariffs as they'd taken American jobs. Most Americans supported this. Electing him, the U.S. has long been de-industrialized. It doesn't produce much anymore and relies on imports. What's the game here? America buys your goods. You earn dollars, but that money flows back to the U.S. via investments in stocks, bonds, and assets. You're forced to buy high and sell low in their capital markets. And the dollars you worked hard for end up enriching American capitalists, like defense firms or industrial giants. This is the game the European aristocracy and elites run. How many have lost homes to rising and falling interest rates? Sure, dollars return to the U.S., but only a tiny fraction trickles down to the average American. Real incomes haven't risen much. Many Americans hold a full-time job yet juggle side gigs to make ends meet. Why? Tuition, food, drinks, and entertainment keep getting pricier, but salaries don't budge. This isn't just a U.S. issue. It's global. Yet Americans still live relatively well. Why? The stock market is their ATM. When cash runs low, they tap it. Investing is how we change our fate. Even at 100 years old, we can still make money. Take Coca-Cola's CEO, a talented guy earning $50 million annually. After taxes, he keeps less than half. But Warren Buffett, doing nothing but investing in Coca-Cola, earns over $500 million a year in passive income. He doesn't manage the company, devise marketing plans, or position products, just picks the right time to buy and manages risk well to achieve financial freedom. If you're still slaving away daily with income that doesn't cover expenses, if working dawn to dusk makes travel or a home feel like luxuries, stop repeating mistakes. One error after another is worse than standing still. From now on, invest in your mind, then use it to make money. Time is limited, so I'll stop here. I share free insights on becoming a rich entrepreneur, investor, and achieving financial freedom. Don't want to miss out? Follow my channel, turn on notifications, and share this video. I genuinely hope you use 1 or 2 ideas from today to improve your life. That's enough for me. I'm FortuneCraft. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.